All right, so this is I think we got to figure out at some point if this is number 2 or number 3. So I'm gonna forget that first one, I guess, and then we'll start counting at number 2. So I'm gonna make it official. I'm gonna make an executive decision. We're gonna start with number 2 here.
Decision made.
There we go. So line drawn in the sand. So the idea behind this podcast today is to talk about getting offers accepted. All right, I think we're gonna bring a bunch of perspectives, right? So I'm gonna bring in the buyer perspective. All right, we're going to get Cadillac here he's been 95% or more listing, maybe 98% listing agent for many, many years now. So he's going to bring the seller's perspective, like what does a seller look at when they pick out of 5 offers? And then later on, we're going to call Jay, one of our lenders, and Jay's going to, Jay from PRMG, one of the owners of the branch of Dayland, branch. So we're gonna talk about what the lender sees on their end. So that's basically how we put an offer together, and we're gonna get all perspectives on it. I'm gonna give 20 plus years of experience, on what I see, not only from my end, because in reality I'm not nowhere near as active as I was before, but having an office with over 350 agents, I see everything coming from all different types of angles. I see what works, what doesn't work. A lot of the times, what I offer my agents is to get involved in the deal, especially the new ones. Like, listen, if things get a little bit hairy, get me involved. So, there's a day that I might be involved in 10 different deals at the same time, all of them negotiated and attorneys involved. And, I call myself the complaint department too, because if anything gets complicated, I jump in. So years of that, you don't realize it, but time passes, and by the time you've been involved in thousands and thousands of deals. So we're going to bring that perspective in here, and I think you guys you're gonna benefit from it. But it's going to be impossible not to talk about coronavirus. All right, I've thought about it. I'm like, man, do I bring it up? Do I not? I don't think you could avoid it. I mean, we're going to talk about everything. I mean, I just saw 2 coronavirus addendums come through my desk yesterday.
Beautiful.
I had an attorney text me one and said, "Hey, by the way, you're gonna see these." I had one come in when I got here from the office. I had a one on my desk, pretty much saying, "Hey, we got to look at this." And I sent it to our attorney Richard, which we'll get on the podcast for sure. So we should see if we could get Richard on the phone to talk about the offers now with coronavirus. See if he's available to get on a call.
I think that would fall about that. I would think that would fall under force majeure.
That's what I want to talk about. He says it doesn't. I would say it has to.
Sure.
So again, we're talking about submitting offers. We're talking about submitting offers today, right? So we're going to talk about it in general, but we're going to talk about getting offers submitted today. What the fuck do we do, right? Like what happens? You're on the seller side. Do you play the coronavirus game? The buyer, what's the buyer thinking? Is he thinking, well, if I need a way out, if the world falls apart, right? Is this going to give it to me? People that are about to close and haven't, can they call for force majeure, which is basically act of God, to kind of translate it a little bit. Fancy. What is that? French?
It's French.
French. I don't know how the hell French ended up in our real estate contract, but. So does an act of God, here in Miami, we use it mostly for hurricanes. So that's how I've been using it for the last, 20 years. If a hurricane comes in the middle of the deal, then you're almost like automatically extended. I guess we'll start with the contract and submitting an offer. And we'll deal with that when we get later on. And I say we start from the first page. I mean, we start from, submitting that offer. Let's do this based on a super hot market where you have 5 other offers out there. How do you compete with them? How do you submit an offer that's going to make a difference? I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to have to, the way I separate my offers, or I tell my agents to separate the offers, is really your aggressiveness in that, in showing the listing agent. So let's play the game here. Cadillac, I'm submitting an offer to one of Cadillac's listings, all right? What I want to do is I want to connect with Cadillac right away.
Sure.
I want to let that guy know, listen, man, my buyer really wants this property. We're going to get it done. I am not going to waste your time. I am going to cross this finish line. Let me show you how and why. A lot of people think it's always price, but let me tell you something. No. On my end of it, right, and I'm sure on your end of it too, if they submit an offer, it could be higher than the other person, right? But that contract is not filled out correctly, right? I mean, it's a hot mess. Things are written, deposits written where the down payment, that's a big common one, people confusing down payment and deposit.
Chinese drywall addendum on a 1972 house.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, coronavirus interruption number one. My son's running around the offices and was looking at me, so I just lost my train of thought. Coronavirus affecting the podcast already.
Well, I've got one for you actually too, and I watched you do this earlier, and I said, you know what, this is absolutely the right way to do this with coronavirus. If I'm negotiating, I am using coronavirus regardless of which side of the transaction
That's
I'm
right.
on.
You were listening in
as,
on one
as
of the
leverage.
That,
I'm going to sit there and say, hey, look, we don't know where this is going to go. Yeah. You should probably take this deal because uncertainty. Yeah. And so I think that definitely there's something to be said. I mean, I know it's kind of a little bit off topic, but the idea of using it as a hammer a little bit to take and try to push or negotiate, hey, look, let's just get this done.
Yeah, and what you're talking about in particular is I was talking to a seller, and this is a very good seller of mine, a guy who I'm doing a lot of business with. I'm telling him the truth. Hey, we have these offers on the table right now, right? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this is going to end on Monday, everybody goes back to work and everything's great, or if this is going to be a 5-month thing. I don't know. I can't tell you. I would tell you what my pre-corona outlook would be, and I told him, I go, look, I would counter super hard, and this is what I would do, and this is what I would do, but I can't tell you to do that right now. I can't in any conscious. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go. I can't even tell you to go one way or the other. I can't even tell you to accept it. I can't tell you not to accept it. I have no fucking clue.
But see, that's the brilliant play there, because it's playing on uncertainty. Yeah. You're sitting there saying, hey, we don't know. But we do know if you agree to these terms, we have a deal. Yeah. And so that is certainty. And so it's playing uncertainty against certainty. And it's a good negotiating tool, 100%.
Yeah. And it's tricky. So, back to that initial offer. So what you want to do, so I'm putting in an offer on one of Cadillac. Cadillac's the listing agent. I'm the buyer agent. I'm submitting that. First thing I want to do is I want to make contact with that person. I want to let them, first of all, I want to let them know if we're thinking about putting in an offer. I want to let them know we're thinking about putting in an offer. There's no negative to that. So let's say my buyer says we're going to go ahead and put in an offer, all right? If I'm already thinking about that, I'm calling that guy and say, hey, I'm probably going to put in an offer tomorrow. Why am I doing that? Because how many times have I called? I mean, I learned this early on. Called the next day and it's no longer available, right? So at least I tell the guy, hey, that offer's coming, right? So he might hold. Yep. He might wait a little bit. And maybe I engage in a little bit of conversation with him so that he is there tomorrow. So worst case scenario, I don't put in an offer tomorrow, then I have nothing to lose. I'm not going to put an offer anyway, right? But if I am going to put an offer, I want to send out that flare right away, and I want to let them know, hey, this offer's coming. And if the guy's receptive, I'm telling him, hey, and by the way, good offer, this, and that, okay? Hey, I'm not going to let you down. We're gonna get this deal closed. Just so you know, we have a desktop underwriter approval, which leads me to another point. Hey, we're approved. We're not pre-qualified. We're not this. We've taken it through the system, and we've gotten, in my case, I use, PRMG. We have an in-house lender, and the reason why I have an in-house lender is because I want that ability to be able to submit an offer with an approval. More offers, when you have a lender that you're working with on a regular basis and they're getting these clients approved, you're getting more offers accepted. So when I submit that offer, I want I like to see a cover sheet that explains everything and summarizes everything. All right, here's who my client is. I've even seen some that have the picture of the client, of them with their dog and their family and everything. Kind of brings a little warm touch to it. Here's what they're offering. Here's their financing. I am attaching the contract with all addendums. I'm submitting a desktop underwriter approval. I'm putting everybody's contact information, lender's information, title company's information. Okay. So what I like to do is what I call a full blitz. I want everybody calling that guy, right? Because what happens a lot of times when you're on the seller side, so like, well, I can't get in contact with anybody. Yeah, that's usually the problem. So now all of a sudden you're on the listing side, and they're calling you, lender's calling you, buyer's agent is submitting this offer with all the contact information, title company's calling you.
Absolutely.
It brings up. So it's does it matter what's on the contract? It does. Of course, you want it filled out correctly. Man, I had I had a deal on one of my listings where this lady submitted the offer with instead of a PDF, she texted me 20 pictures of a contract. Yeah. Each. Okay, so not, and maybe some of you are thinking, oh, that's that app that you take a picture and it turns into a PDF. No, it was absolutely not that. It was a clusterfuck of an offer. It was 15, 20 pictures of each contract, right? She didn't even have the decency to crop out like the table in the back or anything like that. It was just pictures of background and contract, 20 of those, right? I'm on the listing side, okay? Why wouldn't I accept? Let's say that offer's phenomenal, okay? Why don't I accept? And again, I know you guys are thinking, well, you don't accept offers anywhere. You got to submit it to the seller. I know, guys, relax, okay? We're going to submit it to the seller, but we also have say. And if you're a real listing agent, your
sphincter tightens when you see that.
You have a lot of pull and a lot of say into what the seller's thinking. That's why you're the professional. Say, listen, I know this one's better, this offer's better,
but they filled it out in crayon. Yeah, no.
So why does that matter, right? Well, if it's the only offer, hey, crayon party, it is. Let's go.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. This doesn't matter if they have it in crayon on toilet paper. Who gives a fuck? We're gonna accept it if it's the only one, right? But if it's not the only one, and you're competing with others, now we got to say, all right, well, I'm gonna be married to this crayon offer writing agent for the next 45 days, right? Who am I dealing with? What type of I can't even use the word professional. What type of person. Am I dealing with here that does this? What type of training does this person have? What company would allow somebody to do crazy stuff like that? Is this person, did they do their due diligence? If they're submitting an offer like that, did they do their due diligence on the buyer side? When I'm calling them, because I always say it's not if something happens wrong with the deal, it's when something happens, when something gets complicated, when a wrench gets thrown in. Who am I dealing with? Am I dealing with a person that I can sit back and troubleshoot with and figure things out? Or am I dealing with somebody that I'm going to have to do all the work, right? 100%. And I can't even trust them to translate something correctly to their buyer. I'm going to tell them A, and they're going to tell their buyer B because they don't know.
I think it's a good point. From my perspective as a listing agent, the thing that I'm concerned with is I get this offer in, and it fails because the buyer's agent failed at something that I have no control over. That blows back on me as a listing agent with my customer, unless I've done a tremendous job of explaining to my customer what my limitations are as a listing agent. That affects my reputation with my customer. When I train agents, I've always trained around the core concept of the idea that I don't close transaction, I close customers for life. I haven't advertised in 10 years. I have all of my business comes from customers I've done business with before and then referring more people to me. It takes one of those going sideways for me to lose not just that deal, but every deal that customer would generate and all the deals they were going to refer to me. So for me, my reputation with the customer is what's at risk when I get an offer that makes me feel skeevy, makes me concerned, right? So there's a couple of things that you said that I thought were really, really good. One, it was a quick comment you made, but you said, hey, when I'm talking to the other agent, as a buyer's agent, I'm talking to the listing agent, I see how receptive they are. That's huge. Yeah. If I get an agent that wants to take and bend my ear about their customer's life story and I'm busy, I really don't want to hear it. And I always say when I'm training agents, I say, hey, guys, who do you want to work with, a busy agent or a not busy agent? You want to work with a busy agent because they're doing business. People want to work with them, obviously. Yeah. If they're busy, when you call them, do you treat them like they're busy? Do you respect their time and say, hey, do you have a second?
Damn right.
All of that matters because you're right. The way you approach the agent can affect the actual value of the contract more so than the dollar amount.
Absolutely.
And so if somebody approaches me the right way, shows respect that I'm busy, they expect me to be busy, I say, hey, this is a person that's been to the rodeo before. You know, we might be able to get a deal done.
Listen, I've had cases where there's two offers. One is an arrogant son of a bitch, right, that thinks the world is owed to him, right, and just has a horrible attitude. And I have a nice agent so first of all, the arrogant one with a great offer, and I have the nice agent that I much rather work with, right, with a not so great offer. So what? Listen, I'll tell again, guys, just so you know, whoever's listening to this, you're not gonna catch me in any freck shit, all right? Because I always talk to my seller about it. I keep my seller in communication the whole time, and that's the rule. You want to have no issues in this business. You want to be 30, 40 years in this business without no issues whatsoever. Just communicate with your seller, communicate with your buyer, let them know what's going on. So I'll tell my seller, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you the truth here. Okay. We got two horses on this race. All right. This one here, this is what they said. This is how they acted. And remember, why does it matter? Because if and when something happens wrong, I'm going to either call an arrogant son of a bitch that's just going to try to make our life super difficult and is going to wait for us to have a potential weakness to just go ahead and destroy us with it. Or we're going to have somebody who's receptive, coachable, walkable. And I said, hey, you need to change this and this and this in order for your offer to be accepted. And they do it. And they're so who do I want to be married to for the next 45 days?
Absolutely.
Right? So guys, it matters. And here's another thing cash offers. Okay. All right. The arrogant guy, cash, the other guy financing, the nice guy financing. I mean, at the end of the day, the only difference between cash, and I know Cadillac, you're going to add some stuff to that, right? But at closing, it all turns to cash.
It does.
They could pay with Bitcoin. They could pay nowadays with toilet paper. All right, and that toilet paper will have to be transferred.
Fast-growing commodity.
As it is, it really is. So you might, we haven't done a toilet paper closing yet, but I'm assuming that'll have to get wired. It'll have to be transferred into some kind of currency, and at closing, it all becomes green cash.
Sure,
it just does. So that cash buyer, and it's not because of the buyer so much as the agents. When they have a cash buyer, they're calling super cocky. Oh, I got a cash buyer. Oh, my rules now. Well, not really. What dictates the rules, and that's another thing we should talk about, is understanding whether you're in a buyer's market or a seller's market.
Sure.
Your tone, right? If I'm in a 100% seller's market, my tone's going to be completely different, and maybe I'll speak with a higher tone, or I'll be nicer, or I'll be sweeter.
Smile more.
Yeah, less testosterone on my phone call for sure. If it's a seller's market, please, sir, what do I got to do to get this done? I'm in a buyer's market now, and this guy hasn't seen a buyer walk in through that door in 3 months, and all of a sudden I got a cash or fully approved guy. All of a sudden now I'm the.
So this is what we're gonna do here.
Let me tell you, Mr. Seller. Let me tell you how this is gonna work, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you've been in enough of these cycles, you try not to be a bully about it, but you do want to let them know, hey, look, these are my rules. You don't have to say that, but you could imply it. Hey, man. I'm either the seller on a seller's market, and I'm a buyer a buyer's market. We're going to run this the way I want to run it.
Sure.
So what happens is that you get these new agents, and like anybody else in this world, a little bit of power gets into their head, and they know that you haven't seen a buyer, your property's been on the market for 975 days, and all of a sudden they want to be bullies. So, but understanding that market when you submit an offer is key, right? How you call, what you say. So, going back a little bit. So when that offer comes in through email, right? I'm submitting that thing through email. I have attachments, which are the contract, the addendums, and the desktop underwriter approval. Everybody's contact information. I'm having the lender. I'm having the title company. I've already called full blitz, making them sure that we're on it. Okay. I'm sending a text message. Hey, check your email. Just sent you the offer because I want to engage. See that it's different. An email conversation for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's a lot more formal.
Sure.
Right? You tend to reply back with "to whom it may concern," and
sure.
And I hope this correspondent finds you doing well and all that crap. Right? It's a lot more formal when a text message is just regular conversation. So I am following it up with that. Right? I mean, nowadays I'll send them a voice memo. Say, hey, listen, sent you the offer. Just so you know, this is what it includes. This is what's up. This is why we're gonna close. The lender's gonna call you. We're ready to go. Please call me if you have any questions, and give me all the hard questions you got, because I'm telling you, this guy's ready. It's psychological.
Sure.
It's 100% psychological. If you win them over, all right, if you're joking around with them, right, and if you've broken that initial barrier with that other realtor, and sometimes it's harder than others. Sometimes you're like, dude, this guy's a dick. Like, there's just nothing I could do to break this guy, and that's fine, okay? It is what it is, but you got to give it a shot.
You got to give yourself your best possible chance to win.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, what it is it's just one more thing that we can do that either we don't do it and we definitely don't get helped by it, or we try it and it potentially helps us.
That's right.
And I mean, this business is a business of very slim margins in the sense that if you're closing 10% of all the customers you're working with, you're doing great.
Well, that's phenomenal.
Right? But if you could take that 10% and make it 12%,
Sure.
Well, that 2% is straight to your bottom line.
Yes, it is.
And so if this helps you close 2% more deals, it's still huge.
Yeah.
And so that's really what it boils down to. The way I like to look at it is this. So you kind of brought it up. If I have a cash deal and a finance deal, well, most people would agree the cash deal is more valuable. Even if it's for the same amount of money, the cash deal is more valuable. And so the question is, how much more valuable? I ask that question, and agents get a blank look on their face. Is it 5,000, 10,000? Like, what's the number, right? Everything affects the value of an offer, even the kind of person you're going to work with. If you establish that as an option, as something that, hey, you know what, as the other agent, you need to think about, I'm going to be working with this person.
Yeah, but the cash. Okay, sorry to interrupt, but just because as you continue on, I want to throw this at you, right? Cash only makes a difference because of the contingencies, because you're eliminating the financing contingency.
And you're eliminating the appraisal.
You're eliminating the appraisal, which is part of the financing.
It's a risk reduction. You're asking the seller to take on less risk, and for that reason, the seller is giving you a discounted price.
But if you add a 30-day inspection period, then you've accomplished nothing.
Nothing, absolutely, because the contract says at their sole discretion that they pick a booger and it comes out green instead of yellow, they decide to cancel the contract.
It's only more valuable because it allows you to work with less contingencies, less moving parts, less things going wrong.
A reduction of risk is really that's 100% what it is. And so again, if that's being made up for in other terms, and I always say this, right? Any contingency, any term that we add or change to a contract is going to change the risk assessment to the seller, right? So if this contract is contingent upon the sale of the other house, well, obviously that offer is not as valuable as an offer that doesn't have that contingency at the same price. So if our conversation with the other agent adds value to our contract, that allows us to have contingencies in there that maybe other offers don't, but we can neutralize that by our relationship. And you're saying basically to put relationship on the table as something that we're trying to bring to the transaction. That's huge. There's a few things that you can do on that front. One, with the agent, just don't waste their time.
Yeah.
Come in there. If you're going to say something, hey, this is what we're going to do, but say it quickly, briefly.
Yeah.
Use bullet points in the email so it's because I know for me, I'm looking at 700-800 emails a day.
Yeah.
And so I got to tear through this stuff.
Yeah.
And just being aware that everything you do skews the value of that contract some, right? And so bringing in, saying, hey, look, we can get this done. My buyer's not pre-qualified, but pre-approved. The other thing is recognize the listing agent on the other side might not know what the hell they're doing either.
Yeah, and you got to recognize that. And for you new guys, you're not going to be able to pick it up. Hey, by the way, you want to get Richard whenever you want. Yeah. He's on already? Oh, go bring him in. Yeah, he could be included in this conversation. The what were you saying right now? I wanted. What were you saying right now?
I was talking about the different contingencies and the different value of things in cash offers and finance offers.
I was going to bring up a point in there.
It was a great point too.
It was, man. I'm gonna tell you something, man. Well, the
best point.
But we'll never find out what it is.
What was it? It's
never
gone.
Find out what it is.
Gone to the ether.
Yeah. Look, so in summary, so far, not that we're done, but summarizing what we've talked about so far. What you say, how you present that offer verbally, and the connection that you make is going to be very important. All right,
and it's dependent largely.
Richard.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. This sounds a lot more like shit than I expected, but all right, but no, he sounds like he's on the phone. It sounds like we have an effect on it, to make it sound more like he's on the phone. Rich, you there?
Oh, yeah, seriously, I just realized who it was.
Oh, you didn't know who it was. All right. Hey, listen. So you're on a podcast right now. Are you able to give me 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, great. So, by the way, guys, Mr. Richard Barbara Esquire is a gentleman that I've been doing business with since 2006. If I had to, it's been thousands and thousands of deals that we've closed together, thousands and thousands of deals that we've lost together too, thousands of arguments and issues and all that stuff. So Richard, this podcast today is about getting offers accepted, okay? But since it's impossible to talk about anything right now without mentioning coronavirus, right? Right now, I have to also say, okay, getting offers accepted in general in my whole life, but I also have to talk about getting offers accepted today. Like if I'm putting in an offer today, what am I looking at? And these coronavirus addendums are starting to pop up, right? I know I've sent you one for your review. I'm sure you've heard and seen some. Can you give me some light? I know that force majeure, you're seeing it a little bit different even than I've heard other people. So what's your take on these coronavirus force majeure type addendums?
Well, listen, the beauty of contracts and contract law is that by agreement, we can do anything. So, people will often call me and they'll say, hey, Rich, this is, let's say, a post-contract. So they've already signed the real estate contract. It's binding. And then somebody will call and say to me, hey, my buyer just did their inspection and they're complaining about certain repairs or things that the inspector found that they want me to repair. Okay? And I don't want to repair them. And I say, is it an as-is contract? And they say, yeah. And I say, okay, well, then don't repair them. And then they say, well, and what can they do if I don't repair them? I said, well, are they still in the inspection period? And the seller says, yeah. And I said, well, they can walk, right? And then...
Do you say it all with that condescending tone, or you don't?
I'm sorry, repeat the question?
Do you usually say it with a condescending tone, or you don't?
I do.
Good.
I knew the answer to that. I knew the answer to that.
I appreciate
the... And here's why. Because they actually don't need me to answer these questions, right? The answers are all in the document that they will tell you with a straight face that they signed. Right. And if you intimate to people that you know that they didn't sign it or that they didn't read it, rather, then they'll get upset. Then they'll blame a guy like you, right, for putting it in front of them and not explaining all the infinite possibilities that could come from things we could not possibly have foreseen as of the moment of signing, right? So the reason why I give you that example about a setting in which there's already a signed contract is because it is at the point after we sign contracts that we're stuck with what we got, right? That's when, if we're going to agree on something else, we need an addendum, right? And so I get these questions. So let's just finish that example with the seller. So then the seller says, well, I don't want the guy to walk. And I say, well, then it sounds like you might have to agree to make some of the repairs. Right? Because the guy can't force you. The guy can't force you to make the repairs, but you can't force him to proceed. Right? And so with the coronavirus addendum, to answer your question, it's very simple. The only thing those addendums are doing...
I'm losing you. I lost you there for a second. Whatever you did, don't undo it. You walked around or something happened.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the coronavirus addendum, okay, is born out of a desire to remove the ambiguity that is baked in to the force majeure provisions that contracts already have.
Correct. It's almost redundant.
Okay? It's not that it's redundant. It's that you're specifying, you're clarifying, right? Because it doesn't actually say coronavirus. Okay. Right? It says if there are strikes or wars or acts of God, right? And it lists a few things. So if you're a guy that doesn't want the other side to get out because they feel they have an excuse with Corona, you're going to say, look, it doesn't say Corona specifically, right? You're going to hustle the other guy in any litigation, right? In a contract that's going to be interrupted, not performed, that doesn't have the coronavirus addendum, the party that's not trying to pull out is going to argue first and foremost that the coronavirus was not force majeure. Okay, it was not an act of God or something outside of human control. That's probably
so. Richard, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is it fair to say that you, as an attorney, you could defend that on either side? You could either try to ram it up somebody's ass, or you could actually defend it?
No, man, I think that again, I did a video on this recently, and I think that in any coming litigation, in any kind of contract, okay, when you are the party that is trying to back out of performing and you want to use something as a force majeure, in this case, coronavirus, you have to demonstrate two things. So if you're sued, right, somebody sues you for non-performance and you raise as a defense Corona, okay, here's a quick breakdown. In contracts, there's only two kinds of defenses to breach of contract. So when someone sues you for breach of contract, there are only two forms of defense. The first is a defense to formation. you're saying, no, I can't be in breach of the contract because there was never a contract, right? That's a defense to the concept that the contract was ever formed. Those are rare. We more often see things like defenses to enforcement, where the defending party saying, yeah, we have a contract, but there's some reason why I should be excused from performance. That's Corona, force majeure. So if I sue a party that backed out of my contract, and when they defend themselves, they're not going to come to court and say, we didn't have a contract. They're going to say, yeah, we had a contract, but there's a reason why the court shouldn't penalize me for not performing, and that's because of force majeure. And then when you raise the force majeure defense, you typically have to prove two things. First, that the thing you're claiming was a force majeure is actually a force majeure. In this instance, I think most people are going to most courts are going to find, yes, Corona was a force majeure.
Yeah, but now I'm hearing,
okay?
and I don't know if this matters, but I'm hearing it was made in a lab. I know it's rumor mill and everything like that.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter. Doesn't
God
matter.
was,
But stick
well,
with
God
me.
was at the, in the
so
lab.
they
right.
say so I think it's going to be pretty easy, okay, to demonstrate that it is that the virus itself is force majeure. But there's a part two. That's not enough. Part two is that the defending party has to prove that the virus, the force majeure, actually interrupted their ability to perform. So let me give you an example. A guy like me, who thank God is gainfully employed by the chairman of the Super Bowl committee, right? Unless something goes horribly wrong, I'm not going to be able to use force majeure as an excuse because the music is still playing for me. Right,
Right.
now,
Stop playing for everybody else,
are,
but it has to be stop playing for you.
Right,
Not that the whole
right.
world's
Now-
falling
now
apart. It's
if
falling
you-
apart
now,
for you.
If you are an hourly worker at the AAA, if you are the concessions manager at the AAA, right, and Mickey Harrison decides that you're not getting paid because they've canceled the basketball season, now you are probably going to be successful in showing, A, there was a force majeure event, and B, it prevented me personally from performing. You can't point to your neighbor. So there was force majeure. My neighbor committed suicide.
This guy's house burnt down, right? This guy's house burnt down. But
That's not going to get you out of your performance.
It's like claiming an insurance claim because like your neighbor's house burned down.
Right. And so what I think lawyers and realtors are doing in advance, and it's smart, is that they are removing the effort of having to demonstrate later that Corona was actually a force majeure and that it affected you. They're giving everyone the out now. So it's kind of like you can cancel for any reason or no reason during the inspection period. Same thing. Here, if you sign a contract like that and shit goes south, you can just say, hey, man, Corona, I'm out.
Right.
Okay? And listen, by agreement, that's fine. So what do I think about it? I think it's something that agents representing sellers need to explain very clearly to their sellers, right? And to their buyers, because it could also be that, it turns out that you don't want to sell.
Let me ask you a question, though, and I'm getting specific here. So this is all about real estate people listening, right? I'm a realtor, right? I'm buying a house. Let's say I'm closing tomorrow, okay? My shit hasn't hit the fan yet, but it might, right? Or I'm a car salesman. My shit hasn't hit the fan yet, but it might. Okay, so I'm supposed to close. I'm supposed to close right away, but I don't know what's coming. Does force the force majeure that was originally written into the contract? Does it specify for shit that hasn't happened yet? Or
No.
does it allow it?
No.
Right.
No.
So it's at the time of the deal, the shit had to have hit the fan already.
And the shit has to have affected you personally, such that you're not able to perform. Right? Because, for example, the owner of Publix, the family that owns Publix, by the way, is still one family. I mean, they're delighted by Corona. I mean, obviously, I'm being facetious. Obviously not. But I mean, it hasn't hurt them.
Sure.
Financially, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and therefore, it's not a one size fits all.
The manufacturer of gloves and toilet papers and all those guys are
Purell.
Yeah, Purell.
Right. There's a lot of people. In fact, there's a brewery, a guy named, I want to say it's called East Oaks or 8 Oaks, that the guy makes alcohol, family-owned brewery, and he makes wine and things like that. He says he's the very best in the world at making alcohol. He got so pissed off with the price gouging that he converted his alcohol, his wine distillery to an alcohol making plant. And by the way, he's using the World Health Organization's recipe for sanitizing alcohol to make hand sanitizer.
Wow.
This lady who lives in the same town, by the way, and had gone out of business with a hand soap company, had a garage filled with like 150,000 empty little bottles
Wow.
that she was going to use to sell her soap. And she heard about the distillery and donated it. Okay, and so now that guy's using those little bottles to sell his hand sanitizer as formerly made by an alcohol company. You know, so again, it's not burning everybody.
Yeah,
so not everybody can claim it,
can't
you know,
just
as
blanket it,
burn
right.
relief.
Yeah.
That is until
You know?
until the CDC determines that it doesn't meet some standard, and now they can't sell as alcohol. But
Right.
you know, some regulation
Exactly.
gets in the way.
We have another cynic on there.
No, actually,
No,
not.
you're kidding. No, but sadly, I mean, you know, the regulations get in the way sometimes. But yeah, no, good point.
Yeah. So, all right, Rich. Anything else you want to add to today's market and what's going on with coronavirus? I mean, I talk to you like 35 times a day through text, so I know your answers to everything. But anything you want to leave us common folk with as far as what do you think is going to happen here?
We're all common folk now. You know, man, we just gotta try to take direction from the experts and do the best that we can.
Oh, look at that! Look at Richard with a politically correct answer.
That was
I
very
didn't expect that
PC.
from you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
All right,
see you,
honey.
ladies. Good luck.
All right.
In the meantime, I gotta get back to work.
Yeah. All right. Later.
Thanks, Richard.
I'm ready for Jay too, so we could get a little bit of Jay before. What time you got to leave, Cadillac? How much time we got you for?
I got about 15, 17 minutes, something like that.
17.3 minutes.
Give or take. What we were talking about before actually was if the agent on the other side, the listing agent is a new agent, and if you're sending an offer to that new agent, sometimes it's your job to almost fill them in on what they need to tell their customer.
Right.
That's a big deal if you're on the buyer side.
Jay, you there?
I'm here.
All right, Jay. So
What's going on?
all right, so just so you know, we just got off the phone with Richard, by the way, telling us a little bit about those coronavirus addendums that are popping up right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and we're like about 45 minutes into this. The podcast in reality is how to get offers accepted. Okay. So
Okay.
I mentioned, you know, how we do with the desktop underwriter approvals and all that kind of stuff and everything. So we definitely want your take on that, but it also where it's impossible to not talk about coronavirus. So we're trying not to, so that we can make it a little bit more unique. I think everybody out there is talking about coronavirus, but it is what it is. If it comes up, it comes up.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
yeah, I just filling you in, and we're gonna continue to talk about one thing that Cadillac was mentioning, and then we'll jump you in there. Cadillac, I think this is like the second time you wanted to finish that thought. So
Oh, well, no,
right.
that's actually the piece that you wanted to weigh in on when
Yeah.
someone's talking about if you have a listing agent that's a brand new agent.
Yeah.
If you're the buyer's agent, you have to be aware when you're talking to the person, see what kind of feedback you're getting from them. You may need to sit there and establish the value to your offer and say, hey, look, my offer is not pre-qualified, it's pre-approved. And it's this kind of pre-approval, which is a better pre-approval.
yeah,
So-
you're educating them pretty much as you go.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so it's important not to be condescending when you do that because people's egos are fragile.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to sit there and say, hey, look, you know, we're a team. Let me team up with you and get through this.
You know, one thing I learned from attorneys, from the little guy that we just spoke to, in particular, but you know what attorneys in general do is they always look each other up to see how long they've been practicing. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so I'm calling a guy. I've been 1 year as an attorney, and I'm calling this guy who's been 30 years an attorney. You know what I'm saying? I got to be a little more buttoned up
Yes,
than
sir.
I would
No,
normally be buttoned up. You
no,
know what
sir,
I'm
yeah.
saying? So that's something that we could do too. We could go on Miami. We're in Miami. We're in Florida. So you could go on that was My Florida website, I think it's called, and you could check how long they've been on real estate. Right. So if it's 1 year. It's 1 year, you know, you're 1 year and they're 1 year. Hey, maybe you call and say, hey, look, man, you know, we're trying to figure, we're together here, you know, us new guys, you know, we're trying to get this deal done. If I'm the experienced guy, which in my case, I have no choice but to be the experienced guy role here, you know, and I'm calling a realtor who's been in the business for a year or two, I'm not being a dick about it. The other way around, I'm like, listen, brother, let me get this, let me run with it. I'm not gonna make you look bad. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's how we're gonna do it. When he comes back with his stuff, I'm like, you know, not really. Let me explain why. and it's all about the tone, and I'm educating the guy, and I'm, communication and making him understand. I want to make him understand, hey, don't worry, sit back and watch the magic happen.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the point I want to relay. But everybody's different, right? It might be you're the brand new guy submitting an offer to the guy who's been in the business for 30 years. So do you go ahead and try to make yourself sound like you've been 30 years in the business? Good fucking luck. It's going to be right away. They're going to realize you're full of shit, right? So I rather present myself as the young, hungry guy that's going to run through a wall to get this deal done. Sir, what am I missing? What do I need to do to get this offer up to your standards?
Yeah.
Okay. I know you've been in this game for a while. Hey, I'm not going to bullshit you. I've been in this a year or two, but I really do have a very qualified buyer here. Here, they're approved here. What am I missing? What do you feel I'm missing to get up to par or better than the offers that you have right now? Help me out.
Yeah.
Right? Dude, somebody presents that to me that way, I'm going to be like, absolutely, I'm rooting for that guy. I don't care if there's 5 horses in the race. I want to go for that horse.
Americans love to root for the underdog. We love to see somebody. We love to see somebody come from pull themselves up by their bootstraps and from hard work succeed. It's baked in the cake. It's what this whole thing is about. And so when you position yourself that way, you're appealing to something. The first thing it requires is you consider the other person and how best to approach them.
Yeah.
And so that's always what it's about. And you have to take in. Not everybody's the same each day that you get them. And so you have to listen. Hey, is this person being really short on the phone? It sounds like they're super busy. Hey, look, here it is. I'll call you back another time. And having that flexibility in your approach, like you have an idea of what you're going in for, but what does it say? No plan that survives, no battle plan that survives contact with the enemy. It's the same idea. You go in there.
Mike Tyson says it a little bit different. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah, same deal. And so, you have to be ready for that. You know that you might get hit when you pick up the phone. And be ready to adjust to it. Maybe you have to take and send a follow-up email or something like that.
But knowing your audience, that guy's your audience. That other offer's your audience. Don't call a 30-year veteran on some experience stuff. Don't just you're calling and you're saying, hey, man, what do I got to do?
Yeah.
What do I got to do to get it done? And then your preparation has to be up to par, right? So you could be a brand new agent, but don't show up with brand new agent preparation. Just make sure that you're the brand new agent showing up with experienced agent preparation, because then after that, the kissing ass will get you so far.
Yep.
You got to have some substance behind it. So you can't show up with the offer filled out incorrectly, and that's why it's important to pick a the right real estate company, and not always the biggest, and not always the the biggest company in the world. It could be a smaller company that's going to actually walk you through stuff. Sure. I'm not giving myself a plug here because I do that, but maybe I am. But look, right. our agents, you might have a brand spanking new agent first offer, and that offer looks like they've been in the business for 30 years, right? Somebody comes back with a counter offer and makes things difficult. They're not. That agent's going to call me right away, and I'll be on the phone with them, and I'll walk them through it. So, listen, I would love you all to come here, but I'm doing this for this is for everybody to learn, right? Which is a new thing for me. I don't like to teach other people, but the competition. But that's basically what I'm doing here. But as long as you have somebody to walk you through the stuff, right? And if they have to get on the phone with that experienced agent and help you through it, the lender. I tell brand new agents all the time, listen, if you're brand new, you better have an experienced mortgage broker. You better have an experienced title company, because shit's gonna get caught up at some point. So, Jay's obviously on the phone, and he's with Dayland Difference PRMG, and they're very, very experienced, and they're very good at what they do. So a lot of these new agents, I tell them, look, when you're submitting an offer, let Jay call, let Danny call, let any of these guys, and then we got Andy, we got all these guys on that'll call and make you sound like $1 million, right? Remember, the offer is only if it's financing, the offer is only as strong as the financing.
Yeah.
So in reality, deposit, does it matter? Yes, deposit matters, but you can have a $300,000 deposit on a $400,000 house, but if the financing sucks on it, who cares? Because financing contingency is going to kick in, and they're going to get the deposit back anyway. So it could be $1 deposit with the strongest financing in the world. Okay, the lender calls and he's extremely knowledgeable. As a matter of fact, I met Jay. Jay and I have been doing business for 4 or 5 years now. But when we first met, I was on the listing side helping one of my agents, And when I spoke to him the first time was like a breath of fresh air. I mean, the guy knew his shit. You know, I always say the day I fell in love with him, right? And it wasn't his beautiful eyes; it was his knowledge of the business. You know what I mean? It was.
It was my radio voice.
Yeah,
My radio.
it was your radio voice, right? But he knew his shit. He knew he was telling me what the appraisal was going to come back at to the penny because he had already done the comparables himself. All right, he had calculated exactly what it's going to come in at. It might come in a little bit short, so in order to do that, I've taken a little bit of a hit on the fees, so in order for the person to be able to afford it, you know. So he had his shit so together that I told my agent, accept that offer, accept it.
Yeah.
I don't even need to look at the contract.
580 credit score at that point. 580 credit score.
Oh, you remember that much of it? Okay, good.
With a VA loan.
Right. Normally, I would say, look, now that I know what, because I didn't remember that, but normally I would say absolutely not to that. You know what I mean? So that's a tricky loan. That's a tricky loan. Let me tell you why. And you got to know how to work the VAs. You got to have somebody who's experienced on the VAs in order to close VAs. If you get a regular mortgage broker out there that's never touched the VA, I mean, VAs could be a dream. They're a hell of a loan, right? And you want to get them accepted because it's for a veteran. But 99.9% of the mortgage guys out there don't know how to close a VA, and it's tricky. Am I wrong, Jay?
No, not at all. It's one of the things about VA. It's just it has its nuances, and if you understand the nuances, it's smooth. If you don't, you're gonna bump your heads, and you might have some delays and some challenges. And but like everything, it's to me the best loan out there. But going back to the day when we met, I think that was the ideal situation for this conversation. Was a 20-year broker calling me, and I always joke around when I describe the story that you told me. Tell me, Jesus Castanon, with a long pause, and in that pause, you didn't have to tell me. I spoke in
like a third person.
Yeah, yes, I think you did. I think you did.
That's exactly what I just told this. I said in the podcast I wouldn't do before you got on.
I think you did. I recall you did. I don't know. Maybe
I believe it.
But yeah, when we spoke that day, it's exactly what it was. It was you were a savvy guy calling on behalf of your agent, which obviously, as soon as I got on the phone, I knew that was not as experienced. That's why you're calling me. And I knew I had to make sure that it was my one bullet in the gun to be able to get that offer accepted for my buyers. My buyers were not an ideal candidate. If most listing agents just look at the DU and whatnot, they're not even going to consider our offer. I had to go a little ballsy on it and tell the agent to make sure that they say it's in the seller's best interest to accept our offer. And that's how we got into the comp conversation and whatnot. So yeah, bringing in a lender that knows how to help present the offer and knows how to sell the offer, especially if you're inexperienced, is huge. Once you're already a 20-year vet, I always say you're the alpha in the transaction. We're on the lender. We're just there to make sure that we don't ruin your mojo. You know what to do. But
hey,
yeah, definitely.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Okay, but before I forget, because one of my biggest weaknesses in the world is my memory. Right? What's up with? Okay, so one thing that we're also really good at, because we figured it out, is when you have a listing that says cash offers only, right? How many of those do we get accepted in financing, and why? All right, so what is it when you have one of those offers that says cash only? Guys, it doesn't always mean cash only. It could also mean I'm a listing realtor that doesn't know what the fuck I'm doing, so everybody tells me to put cash offer, so I'm gonna put cash offer. I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I think I should put that. But a lot of times we could do it. And explain, Jay.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different answers for that. If you, besides the let's say lack of knowledge, I think it could be a way to get an investor to call you and try to double top the deal. I think that's one side. I think it's a little bit of a trying to make sure you deter financed offers. As long as the property has a lot of block, as long as the property is habitable, basically windows and whatnot, you're going to be able to get an FHA. You're going to be able to get an FHA offer accepted.
Jay, you're breaking up. Are you walking around?
Jay, right now you don't see it as much as you did several years ago when we were in a short sale REO market, and a lot of investors were doing flips and whatnot. They're always expecting to get some kind of financing, but it all depends on the market. But a lot of times I think it's just not understanding the property you have. And, the thing is, an FHA loan can be your best friend if you're a listing agent, because you open your market up to 100% of buyers instead of, let's say, 40% of buyers that might be conventional only.
I think the confusion
so what's in your
happens.
seller's best interest is for you to be able to sell your property for the top dollar. Financing is important. I always say that, cash is king because we mean cash is safe. But
Jay,
if you are as a finance, if I can come in and solidify
I think
that
you just
outside
put that
of an
thing on speaker
appraisal,
and he
which
went
we're
crazy.
already
He's
do
just like,
comps, we're already on top of it, but the financing
Jay.
is secured. In other words, the borrower is fully qualified. There are no challenges on the borrower's end.
How long
It's
is it
just a
gonna go for?
matter of title and appraisal, and I can take that insecurities away from that listing agent. Then I did my job as a lender to be able to help get your offer accepted.
Jay, hello.
Yes.
Okay, so I think the confusion happens. Just you weren't hearing me for a little bit. I was asking a question. What makes it? Okay, so the answer. I'm going to answer my own question, and I need your help to answer it a little bit further. Right. So the reason why these realtors put it cash only is because they figure that the condition of the property makes it unfinanceable. And I don't know if that's a word or not, but what exactly? When does the condition of the property switch from habitable to non-habitable? What I know there's a clear definition to that. Can you enlighten us on that?
Yeah, so obvious visual repairs, holes in the drywall, holes in the roof, no windows, no toilets, things along those lines. That would be what would consider,
air conditioning. Actually, no. For whatever reason, do I remember that correctly? It's not really air conditioning. It's heater, right? It has to have heat. Correct. Even though in Florida, that's the least thing we need is heat.
Yeah,
but those rules were written up in Washington where you need heat. Yeah. So it would be some type of heat, and a kitchen is what I hear is the absolute deal breakers. Correct.
And a kitchen sink, at least a kitchen sink and a heater. So heater, why? Because you want it to be safe. Even though that they've pushed the AC envelope a little bit, just because it could be unsafe if you don't have AC in a property. But a lot of times that doesn't prevent us from financing the property. It may affect value, and the buyer will have to have it installed in a paid receipt to have it installed post-closing. So a lot of times those things can be handled post-closing. We know that they're going to install an AC when this buyer pays for the home.
You have no choice here in Miami.
Yeah, as long as they have the paid invoice saying that an AC is going to get installed, that we'll give them 5 days to do so. And that's, again, us being able to communicate to the listing agent that we usually have a solution for most problems, but as long as we're able to communicate well with our agent that's working on the buyer's behalf, and they keep what I always say, our windshield clean, and they let me know what's going on, I'm able to find a solution prior to making that, conversation with that listing agent. And when we have that conversation with that listing agent, again, it's the one bullet we have in the gun. We got to make sure that we're on target, we're well informed, so that when we get off the phone, they can say, holy fuck, okay, this person knows what they're doing.
Hey, let me ask you, so if you had to give, I don't know, 3 tips to new agents or experienced agents that that makes their offer stronger, like what tips would you say? Like, hey, here's how to get a deal accepted. Here's how to get an offer accepted. What would you say, Jay, as a guy who's been in the business as long as you have it on the financing end of it?
Yeah, so definitely do your homework. What I mean by do your homework is, check your comps. I think that's obviously number one. Make sure you understand the area. Make sure you understand the property. I go into the property card down here in Miami-Dade County. We can go ahead and see the buildings, the additions, what year. So understand the property. Do your homework.
Let me interrupt there for a second, Jay. So here's another thing, guys. It's not what you say, is how you say it, right? So if you're calling somebody with comparables and the property's overpriced a certain number, and you're calling saying, hey, look, it's not worth it. So you could either say this thing is never going to appraise, forget, and you could be Mr. Negative Joe, or you could be like, hey, listen, I'm here to get the deal done, but I'm just not seeing any comparables. Is there anything you can send me to help me, right? Because I'm having a hard time showing my buyer
how to justify this price.
A rational reason to submit an offer at the number that you're asking. Now, if I could show it to them, then I could get that offer to that number. But can you help me? What can you do? You know what happens most of the time? They'll be like, dude, honestly, this thing's overpriced. I can't find any comparables. Listen, why don't you do this? Put in an offer. I'll talk to my seller, and I'll try to do. You know what I'm saying? So it's not I'm the cocky guy that thinks he knows everything. Again, it all depends on the market, like we spoke about earlier. But you want to call and you want to be like, hey, I'm the educated guy that's trying to get this deal done, but you're not giving me any ammunition, and you want to know where their head's at. Either it's like, hey, I'm putting it up there because I feel like it, or no, I saw this comparable and this is right. Well, yes, but remember that comparable is newer. This comparable is that, and you could go back and forth on that type of stuff. So sorry, Jay, but yeah, homework wise on the comparables, you got to be careful how you submit it. You got to be careful how you relay that information.
Yeah, correct. So definitely do your homework. So at least you go armed. I think second thing you can do, and that kind of leads me to point number 2, is obviously what you want to do is know your situation regarding your buyer. And we'll go back to, I think ideally this conversation ties into that first meeting we had, or that first scenario where I knew my buyer was willing to pay over appraised value in the event that it didn't come in at appraisal. So when you come in and you prepare, the listing, you say, listen, let's say you are overpriced, right? Hey, listen, my comparables are here. I know you're over there. We're going to meet somewhere in the middle. What I need you to do is make sure that we're not wasting time here, right? Now, if you have a buyer that doesn't have a penny over, the appraised value and they're counting their pennies, the worst thing you can do is just throw in the offer to throw it, cross your fingers and hope that the appraisal, when it comes in low, the seller's going to take. Because
by the way, I've been surprised by appraisals on both ends. There was a deal that I thought I would have bet my life it was going to appraise at one number. And again, man, I've been around the block, guys. I shouldn't be getting numbers wrong, and I was wrong. I was wrong by like $100,000. I never forget that property. It was over there by the Lejeune area. I'm like, God, man, that's the most wrong I've ever been. And I would have bet my life on it. So, things happen. So you got to get out of here, Cadillac. All right, hey, hold on. Cadillac has to get out of here.
Let me just leave you with 2 things. Yeah. One, I know you don't like to wave your flag too much, but I will for you. One of the things I love and respect about this guy is he genuinely does care about his agents, and you can see the mortgage broker that he has as a deal closer. He surrounds his agents with people that remove the excuses agents have of, oh, it's the mortgage broker, it's the title. He puts people around you that actually help you to get deals done. So I mean, just from an outside perspective looking in, that's one of the things I respect about the organization that you have.
Thanks,
here.
buddy. I really appreciate it. Coming from you, it means the world, bud.
What
a love fest we got here.
And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is. Government is bailing out with $1 trillion right now. That money's going to have to get printed because
this is a good point you're going to bring up. Yeah.
So I don't have time to really dive into it other than to say that's going to result in inflation, and the best place to be when there's inflation is in real estate.
Can you just tell us why a little bit real quick?
Okay, because in one minute I'll.
On the edge of my seat here. You're leaving right. I thought that's what we're going to be talking about today. I was all pumped up to talk about mortgage bonds and all of these things.
No, it's a super sexy topic. There's a lot to talk about, but I'll just leave it to you this way: if you're sitting there with money in the bank, that money is losing buying power every day. If you have it in a commodity, like if I had cans of Coke here, and money became less valuable, I could take and sell that.
We're
Coke.
in Miami, so not cocaine. You're talking about
Coca-Cola. No, the Coca-Cola. Okay. Yeah, it's very, very important to make that distinction here. I think the best summary that I can give you is something I heard from somebody when I taught this on a can of Coke and how that maintains its value while money loses value. He said, you know what the difference is between experiencing appreciation and inflation? Ownership. If you own real estate, that real estate is automatically going to go up in price based upon the fact that the money that you're using to buy the real estate with is less valuable. If your money's sitting there in the bank, you've experienced inflation. That money is worth less. You can buy less with that money. So I think that we're actually in a very good place for people that understand inflation and understand that the government has just written, what is it, $1.5 trillion worth of stimulus money that they're going to spend. They're already $20 trillion in debt. Where does that come from?
Let me ask you a question. So, and it's how much per person again?
It's going to be $2,000 per person, is what it looks like.
$2,000 per head.
Per head.
Little heads and big heads.
No, little heads get $1,000.
Okay.
Children are that's the numbers I saw today. It's $1,000 per child, $2,000 per adult.
So a family of 4 is getting $6 grand.
$6 grand.
That'll make a difference.
I got to leave you on that note, guys. I'm sorry to run.
All right, Cadillac, no problem, buddy. Thanks, man. So yeah, Jay, you wanna elaborate on that?
On the
I'm not smart enough to.
Well, yeah, no, outside of that, I mean, I think definitely that's a lot of the conversation we're having right now on our end is this bailout and the $1 trillion, what's it going to do? Because where's that money going to come from? And basically, it's going to come from, they don't have a bank account, and a lot of the professionals and experts in our industry are talking about that. A lot of that money is going to come from things like, the security markets and, and selling bonds. And so there's going to be a lot of things going on right now that's going to affect, the rates, but that's a whole other conversation. I mean, I think we want to, that's a whole other podcast in itself.
Yeah, listen, and by the way, it's kind of good to talk a little bit about Cadillac when he's not here. It's a little bit more uncomfortable when he's right in front of me. But the reason why I value this guy's opinion so much, and the reason why you've noticed the first two podcasts he's on both of them, this is a unique individual. This is a guy who's read, I mean, thousands and thousands of books. I would have to put a number; it'd be 5,000. The unique thing is he doesn't read them; he puts them on audio, which you're like, all right, big deal. Everybody does that. He listens to them on double speed. Right, so he could go through the book in a couple hours. So it sounds like chipmunks, but he's still able to capture the information. So that guy's read a book on everything you can possibly imagine on this planet. Aside from that, every real estate designation that exists, and I'm not exaggerating, he has it. Every single one. He went one by one, step by step, and got every single real estate designation. He likes cars, right? He likes cars, so he became a mechanic, a certified ASE mechanic. It's one of those guys. So when you guys wonder why the hell I'm always going to Cadillac for information, he's almost like the brain that I wish I had. All the information is in there. It's like a Google, but it's right in front of you.
So you're basically telling me he uploads books into his brain through audio, right?
So that I could ask him stupid questions and he could answer them.
So we can ask him questions that we can hopefully sound smarter or feel smarter.
Right. So I know if I have him on here, no matter what, like I know a little bit because maybe I've watched a documentary, but then I'll ask him and he'll have a whole story behind it. Because he's read 3 books on the subject on double speed. Next time we're on, I'm gonna have him put like what speed he listens to it on, so you guys can see what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the 3 points or the three tips, definitely I would say that, know your buyer. That's the other thing. Know your property, know your buyer, do the homework, because then at this point, based on who you have, is how aggressive you can be or how you have to be able to approach. And again, I think the other thing you said is just, kind of be humble and know your audience,
Yeah.
So the last thing is just know who you're dealing with on the other side. I think I was working with one of your agents that, I'm talking to him and he's very, set in his ways. And first thing I did was look at his license and I see he's been licensed in 2004. I said, okay, now I understand I have to talk to this guy completely different just because now I'm seeing that he's been in this business for a long time, longer than I have. So he has a way of doing things. So, I have to kind of take a back seat a little bit on how I'm usually in most cases probably more experienced than the majority of the agents that I deal with.
Yeah, and here's another thing though too. That one thing we got to talk about is what if you're submitting an offer to a bank, which is not even a human, so there's zero emotions in that, right?
Yeah.
It's you're submitting it to a robot. That's all the robot's going to do is analyze what's written on the contract. So now all of a sudden your only language to be able to communicate is contract. So how do you make it more aggressive? You put a higher deposit amount, right? You, instead of putting, 20 or 30 days for financing, if you already got an approval, you ask your lender, hey, what's the fastest I could get this loan commitment done? 15 days. All right, we got a loan commitment in 15 days because it's already submitted, right? I'm not asking for 10 days of inspection. I'm asking for 5 days of inspection, right? And price, obviously I'm going to go with the highest price possible because I'm not going to have a human. I'm not going to play the game I would normally play expecting a human to counter, right? And then I could still play that. I have maybe one shot at this, right?
Well, there's an old saying, highest and best, but highest isn't always best. So, a lot of times you'll have agents, and I think that the banks have experienced this, that an agent would offer $30,000 over asking price, and the bank's looking, and it's an FHA offer, no money in the bank, and they're looking at the DU and they're saying, listen, this guy's just offering that to come in as the highest, but that thing's not going to appraise. Is this a realistic offer? And then you might get somebody that might come in maybe $2,000 or $3,000 over what their expectations of the property is, with again fast closing time, high deposit, maybe like a conventional 10% down. And they'll say, you know what, this is an offer I want to work with, because it's not the highest, but it's the best offer. It's the closest that I have to guaranteeing results for my seller.
Right. And if you're competing with 3 or 4 offers, right, and my buyer, do I tell the buyer, hey, listen, let's put in the highest offer you can possibly do. Oh, what if it doesn't appraise? Well, it doesn't appraise, then you're fine. Then we're out of the deal, or we negotiate ourselves back into the deal. The second you put in an offer and it does not appraise, okay, and I see this a lot. Oh, a contingent on appraisal, dummy. Financing is contingent on appraisal, and this contract. I shouldn't say dummy. I should say sorry. Let me take that back. Brand new realtor that needs help. Okay, the offer's already contingent. Some of them are dummies. The offer's already contingent on financing.
There's a dummy thing, in fact, with it, because I agree with you 100%. That addendum is meant for cash offers, saying, hey, I'm putting an offer on your property cash, and it's going to be contingent of an appraisal. Meaning, if you're asking, let's say $300,000 for this home, and my appraisal comes in at $290,000, you know what? I'm not going to move forward with it, even though it's a cash offer. And I think that
right. So if I'm putting in an offer on a property that I know is overpriced, by me putting, and these are the little tricks that this is why you guys have to have somebody to talk to that's been in the game for a while, because these are the little tiny little tricks that just make a difference, right? So if I'm putting in an offer on a property that I know is overpriced, by me putting contingent on appraisal, I'm telling them the fucking game that I'm playing, right? I don't need to put that. Why am I going to alert them? I'm showing them my hand. I put in the offer. When it doesn't appraise, it's contingent on financing, right? If it doesn't appraise, it automatically triggers I can't get financing for this property at that number. So we're done. Now we're out of the contract. What I always tell people, now we're out, right? We could get out if we wanted to. But guess what now? Where are those other offers? When the property was on the market, where are those 5 other offers? They're looking for other properties right now. So I'm the lone horse on the race right now. I have a little bit more leverage to negotiate, right? So I'm in there now. I'm in the playing field right now. And now guess what? Hey, buddy, what are you going to do? Get rid of me? You think this appraisal problem is going to disappear? You think the next guy is going to get it appraised? It's going to be the same thing. You rather deal with me? You have me here. I'm already ahead of the game. I've already done inspection. Appraisal's already in. I got an approval. I'm done. Right? So when you see those overpriced properties, now you got to tell your buyer, hey, listen, what are you risking here? Are you risking your deposit? No, you're not risking your deposit because it's contingent on appraisal. Sorry, it's contingent on financing, not on appraisal. You'll lose that appraisal money. You'll lose that inspection money. Okay, so you tell your buyer, hey, here's the risk. This is the game you're playing, but there's an upside. You're getting everybody else. You really want the house? You're getting everybody else out of the competition. You're the only horse in the race now. And now we're negotiating at a level playing field with this person because we have a little bit of leverage. We're further down the line. We're 10, 15 days into the transaction. Them starting all over again is rare, especially knowing they're probably going to be in another 15 days if they pick another offer in the same situation, right? So if you see those offers that are high, you tell your buyer, hey, here's the game we're going to play. Here's what you have to lose. Are you willing to do it? If they are, then they are. It's all on how much they want the property, right? But that's a way to combat that,
No, and another thing that happens is sometimes a lot of agents aren't even aware. They think that you're in. And again, this is still knowing your homework, knowing your craft, but understanding that what the finance contingency, it is the best friend of your buyer in a contract, because the appraisal is not tied to the inspection period. The appraisal is tied to the finance contingency. So I get this all the time where they're like, well, no, we need to have the appraisal back in 10 days. We need to have the appraisal as soon as possible. And they want to know, and everyone wants to know. But I always try to tell agents, like, listen, I want my approval back before I want my appraisal. Because if my approval is back before the appraisal comes in and the appraisal comes in low, guess what? It's a lot easier for me to negotiate with an approved loan commitment stating, hey, listen, our appraisal came in a little low. But guess what? My buyer's cash at this point.
Absolutely.
Either you take it or you leave it, because at this point, he's basically good to go. We're wrapping up the loan. It's not a question of if we're going to get financing acquired. It's just a matter of, this is the value of your property that came in. Take it or leave it. Because what's going to happen generally is that appraisal is probably going to get hit majority of times on the same amount by other appraisers. You could still have some variances here and there.
Very little.
But
very little.
But very little. They're usually going to come in around, especially in certain areas in in areas like ours where you have a lot of cookie cutter style homes, or there's not a lot of uniqueness in the homes, and you don't have homes that are 5 miles apart. In our area, that homes are very close together, especially in that $500,000-$600,000 under range. You're going to get a consistency amongst values from the appraisers. So a lot of times they're nervous. They want to hear that number. They want to know if they have a deal or not. They're spinning their wheels. And on my side, You know, you got to be a little patient. Let's let the appraisal come back in. I'd rather have my approval first than my appraisal. It's not tied to the inspection period, because if I have that in hand and I can go in and say, okay, my appraisal came in low, but let's negotiate this cash, that's going to make our offer a lot stronger and a better chance of us getting to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're submitting the offer, there's 5 other offers in there. You have 0 leverage. Remember that. You're just at this point begging for a place in the race. All of a sudden, you win the spot in the race, okay? And every day that passes by, you get more leverage. Every day, you know, every contingency, financing contingency, inspection contingency, every day that passes by, you're further into it. You know, now all of a sudden the deal doesn't go through because of financing. Sorry, because of the appraisal. You have almost all the leverage. I'm not gonna say all of it because they could be like, hey, whatever, I'm gonna go with somebody else because I feel like it. But then again, they're gonna be in the same ballpark, you know. So, yeah, man. What else am I forgetting? Deposits. For contingencies. The being aggressive on contingencies. We got the financing part of it. We got, just what I was telling him, and Jay, you weren't here. Just when you submit that offer, you put everybody's contact information on it, right? You do a little summary of the deal. So to make it as dummy proof as possible for that other realtor, for him to not have to read through all the stuff, you have a little bit of a summary on everything. You know, the easier you make it and the more professional you look, guys, it makes such a difference. I'm telling you, guys, I've had thousands and thousands of listings. I'm not here to show off, dude. I've been in the business 20 years, and I better have had thousands of listings. You know, so when I'm looking at, I've looked at, thousands of those offers, and made thousands of those decisions. I'm telling you. The more organized you are, okay, followed up by the more communication you offer, right, and explain your point. I don't care what anybody says. Personality has a lot to do with it. The way you connect with that listing agent, if I have a listing agent, if I have a buyer's agent that's making an offer on my listing, I'm telling you guys, I will push for them. I'll be like, seller, this is why I want this guy to win the war here. This is why I want this guy to beat out all the other 10 offers. Let me explain why, And if I got that listing, the chances are I got that seller's ear, right? And I have some influence on that seller. The financing guy, like I said, the reason why I met Jay, the day I met Jay, he was, I was, again, I'm going to clarify this. I was with one of my agents that was the listing agent. She comes to me and says, Jesus, should I accept this offer? When I'm looking at it, I'm like, damn, probably not. Let me talk to this. Let me talk to the lender. When I call the lender answers the phone. It's Jay. He has all the comparables done. He has all the facts in front of him. He knew who this person was. Every detail was explained to me. And the other hand, if I would have called the mortgage broker, and they're like, Mike Fernandez. Fernandez sounds familiar. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, not what I want to hear. Not what I want to hear. I want to hear, oh yeah, absolutely. Here's why you should accept this offer. This is what's going on. Here's the good, here's the bad, here's the ugly, here's everything about this deal. Here's why I know I could get it done. That's what I want to hear. If I can't get the guy on the phone, right off the bat, here's another thing, guys. Answer the fucking phones. All right. One thing. Hey, one thing that I see a lot, and I do not accept that in my office. If I hear, man, there's very few things you could get thrown out of here for. All right, everything else I try to walk people through it and everything like that. Man, if you're one of those people that doesn't answer the phones, oh man, that's a pet peeve of mine. Because communication is key. So if you're on the buyer side and that listing agent is calling you and you don't answer, and then you call them back the next day, yeah, I mean, with me at least, you're not getting shit accepted. I mean, if you're one of those people that's part-time and doesn't answer the phone, and let me clarify that. You could be part-time and answer the phone, okay? You could be a part-time realtor and answer the phone full-time. So as long as you're full-time in the business, your head's full-time in it, and you're answering the phone full-time, and you're responsive, I look for responsiveness, right? Because if I have an issue with this deal and I got to spend 3 days chasing you around, sorry, not going to happen. So yeah, that's another way to get your offer accepted. I don't know, Jay. I think I ran out of I'm sure I'll think about stuff when we're done with this, but anything else in your head?
No, I think that pretty much covers, most of communication was the last thing I was going to add, and you pretty much covered it. As a realtor, you need to be able to communicate. Obviously, as a lender, you got to be able to communicate. And that's sometimes the biggest challenge you're going to have with realtors is the communication, and you got to be smart and humble as well. When you're trying to get that offer accepted, like you mentioned, know your audience and just be savvy with it and try not to overpower it. But at the same time, you want to hold firm for your borrower. You want to make sure that you have them, their best interest at heart, that you're not going to sell out just to get the offer accepted. You got to do your homework on the property. I had another scenario where the borrower, we look at the comps, the property's going for 650. We look at the comps, we see that the property is worth maybe 540, 550 at best. Borrower says, you know what? I want to offer 530. Most agents will balk. They'll say, no way, that's way too low. And you know what? Let's put it for 530 because really that's where the comps are. The seller comes back at 600. At 600, they come back and the buyers are again like, listen, really, my number on that property is 550. Okay, put 550 on it, and tell the agent that, listen, we're not going to play this game where we're going to offer you 600 and hope the appraisal comes in low. And then because the seller's still going to want 600, they're not going to care at that point. This is the best offer, 550. Now the sellers came back at 560. Okay, based on appraisal, if it appraises for less than that, we'll go ahead and we'll accept it anyways. We'll go based off appraised value. And we were able to get that sale down from 650 asking price, overpriced, all the way down to an accepted contract of 560. And, chances are it's probably going to appraise between that 540, 550 range.
Yeah.
And borrowers, but if the borrowers would have said yes to 600 at that point, just because, oh my God, I already got 50 grand. And the agent didn't hold firm and still stick with, where the comps were and did the homework. And even the listing agent was, well, these are my comps. But one of the comps went through every single one. One of them didn't match. They were, stating that their house was, like 6 bedrooms, which technically it is, but it's done with a functional obsolescence. They came back and told there's a functional obsolescence there. That's affecting marketability. They did their homework. They came back. And at that point, the listing agent was able to get the seller to budge, get the offer accepted, and and they're moving forward now. So
yeah, look, another thing before I forget, right? So here's another thing, and again, guys, the reason why, somebody like me that sees, a realtor comes in brand new, and the questions that they have, and the stuff. I see offers from their infancy, from the brain of some of the person putting in the offer, from their infancy, right? So one thing that I see all the time, common mistakes that I see on a regular basis, I'll have a realtor call me and say, "All right, Jesus, they're asking $500,000 for this property. What should I offer?" Like what they're basically asking me is, there a rule of thumb on how bullshit do I make this offer, right? Like what I usually see is like, well, do I go 5% lower or do I go 10,000? Like I go, dude, dude, if it's a young man, I'm assuming, right? But I'm like, hey, look, there's not really a number, and like, what do the comparables say? So one thing that I want everybody to know, there is no rule of thumb on how low the offer is going to be placed just based on a number. You got to do comparables, and the explanation that has worked for me to get this point across is like, let me ask you a question. Okay, so let's say that I give you a rule of thumb and I say, oh, offer $10,000 less, but the property is worth $400,000. Now, so just because we're going to put a rule of thumb of 10,000 lower, you're going to put a $90,000 a higher offer than the 400,000.
Oh, yeah.
Or what if the property is worth $1 million? Then guess what? Offer them full price. Offer a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? Because guess what? You're stealing the property. So no, it has nothing. There is absolutely no rule of thumb to submitting an offer other than doing your homework and doing the comparables. And you don't just say, hey, I think you should put this offer. You say, hey, Mr. Buyer, here's the offers. Here's why we should submit this offer at this price. Here's the comparables. Here's how they look. Here's how long they were on the market. And then you submit the offer like with a with some kind of substance and some kind of some backing, some knowledge, knowledgeable backing. So no, there is no rule of thumb. That's another thing. So Jay, I think we're about an hour and 20 minutes into this. Unless you got anything else, I'm gonna hang up my gloves.
I want to ask you one last question on comparables. Just are you of the philosophy that you run comparables before going to the property or after you visit the property as an agent?
Visit like
Or they look at
showings. No, I don't tell them I mean, because then they'd be spending their whole life. They're gonna show 10 properties. They'll be spending after they've picked one or two or three, and they've kind of gotten it down to a couple favorites. Then yeah, do comparables.
Okay.
Because now you're spending your whole life doing comparables on properties you're never gonna see. You're never gonna put an offer on. So when you get there and you like it, you do your comparables and figure out if you're gonna go move forward or not.
Yeah, and you also get to understand the property better. That's my philosophy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, go look at it. I get all the time. Oh, can you help us with comparables? Have you shown the property? No, go look at it first. Correct. And then call me afterwards. So when I ask you questions, how's the property? You can know, because sometimes pictures could be deceiving.
Well, and how's the neighborhood? I see a lot like, oh, hey man, like, I had somebody come and tell me, oh, this property, it seems like it's $100,000 lower than all the other ones. I'm like, that's weird. I look at it, the square footage. I mean, its condition is great. You know what it was? It was on a main street. I'm talking about a main street. It was almost a shopping center at that point. It was a beautiful home. It was in a community, but the back of it was like on like a major avenue. So yeah, that's what's that, external obsolescence, to be technical, and yeah, so that property value is gonna be affected because of that. Because how did I look at the comparable, look at an aerial view. Damn, this thing's on. Actually, I remember now, it was on a corner of a development. So it was on two main avenues. It was like on a main street and a main avenue. This thing, the noise at night and all times, and that's why they were offering it. So she's like, oh, can I buy it and then flip it? I'm like, no, because you're going to buy it at that and you're not going to sell it at what the other ones are the comparables. So yeah, you got to look at everything. You got to look at the neighborhood. Nowadays, you don't got to drive the neighborhood. You could just go on Google Earth and travel the whole damn neighborhood. But yeah, so all right, man. Jay, you're the man. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
All right, man. See you.
All right, bye-bye.